Well, good morning and welcome to City Talk. It's a weekly radio program. It's a podcast. It's also a television program originating from our studios in the City Hall at Waco City Hall and produced by the City of Waco to educate and inform you about all the things going on in the City of Waco, projects, plans, and programs, and we're going to be talking about today. I'm Larry Holsey, Director of Municipal Information and Communication for the city. Today I'd like to welcome Rainisha Hudnall, who is the interim director of our Housing and Code Enforcement Department. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, you got the title right. And Marcus Davila works in the same department. Used to work in my department downstairs in the graphic department, but decided he could move up in the world and get away from me, right? But anyway, we've got three different projects and programs that you all offer that are really neat for people who are homeowners and need help. For example, rehabilitation program we'll be talking about, the lead-based paint issue that has been addressed and now has options on that and provides funding for those, as well as down payment assistance for people who want to maybe get into a home.
Yes.
Let's start off right off the bat with home rehabilitation. That's a project that you all have had, that you all receive funding from other sources, I'm sure, besides the city. Talk to us about the rehabilitation program.
So the rehabilitation program is funded through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development through our Community Development Block Grant and our Home Investment Partnership Grant. We utilize these funds to preserve the housing stock within the city of Waco. And so the way we utilize the funds, we have an application process where we have citizens who apply who have maintenance needs to their unit. And so some of the things that we address within the unit would be roofing, HVAC systems, electrical, plumbing, those things. And we'll address those in certain priorities. And so if they do have code violations or any health hazards, we will go in and inspect the unit and determine if our funds are feasible to repair the unit. Originally, the program went up to $25,000 for assistance. However, we have increased it to $50,000.
Wow, okay.
Yes.
So any type of project, and there are some qualifications. We'll talk about that, what the
Yes.
application process is about. But that helps. It has got to be a homeowner, can't be a landlord.
Correct.
So they have to be the person residing in the home that is making that, and it does have to be within the city limits of Waco.
Yes, the house has to be within the city limits of Waco. They have to have lived in the home for approximately 2 years prior to applying for assistance. However, we do have situations where there are family members who live in houses, and as long as we get approval from the other family members to make repairs to the unit, we will be able to do that as well.
Well, that's good. Well, some of the other things I just see down here is the fact that, it obviously can't be in the floodplain in some areas.
Of course,
that
yes.
we feel like that you're administering these funds. And are these HUD or whatever, the funding grants and things, they have restrictions, and you're more or less putting those into motion?
Exactly. So we are ensuring that we're in compliance with the federal government. So the home cannot be located within the 100-year floodplain. That is one of the requirements. You can't be past due on your taxes. Mm-hmm. That's one of the requirements. Also, of course, as we mentioned, the property has to be located within the city limits, and also it needs to have a clean title.
Yeah.
And for North Assist.
So basically, you have to be a good citizen as it is, just needing help and up to 50,000. Now, who goes out and makes the assessment or validation of what the needs are? You say 25 used to be the peak, now 50,000. How does somebody determine whether or not they need 10, 15, 20, 40, or 50,000?
So Marcus, as our construction supervisor, he'll be able to answer that.
Yeah, so, each property has to be evaluated on a case-by-case basis, obviously. The needs aren't always the same. One particular home may have, a bigger amount of needs as far as the home repairs go. So what happens is when the applicants come to our office, or nowadays, online, and submit their application, then we have a team of rehab specialists and myself that will come out, and we're going to do an evaluation of the property. During the evaluation, we're going to go room by room and identify all the needs that are of the home. We're going to start with our priority system that's going to evaluate the major components of the home. We're going to look at your roof first. We want to look at the foundation, the electrical, the plumbing, and those are going to be the core priority areas that we look at. Also, what we want to look at, of course, are any code violations that the homeowners may have got. Obviously there's city ordinances and that state that the homes must be in certain condition. So this rehab program is going to be a great way to help address those code issues, to provide a solution to the problems that the homeowners may have. And so the team will come out, we'll do a write-up on the property, and then once we have the write-up complete and we move along in the approval process, then this project is then placed out to bid for contractors to submit competitive bids to get the work done.
So you actually do some of the process of getting a contractor that is registered with us, that we can get a certified type of contractor, things like that. Well, that's really interesting, because now that Code Enforcement Department used to not be a part of housing, and now it is. It's a very obvious, almost no-brainer that it should be in the department. Let's relieve any pressure and stress people may have about, you mentioned about code violations and things. Certainly when you find that the home that you own, again, this is not a landlord situation, this is a homeownership. When there's a code violation, that might be the time for that homeowner to really look at the way to fix that, and you all give that. But I want to dispel the problem with the fact that if they go out to, and you, Marcus, you and your team go out there and you find code violations, but then they don't qualify for the loan, how is that process? Because they don't want to have you come in and inspecting and finding code violations that they can't fund or whatever else. I mean, I know you all are trying to help people, and that's the bottom line. So, talk about that a little bit, because I want to make sure people don't, I'm afraid to apply or whatever else and have somebody come in my home and then I'm tagged.
Yeah. So, the rehab program is definitely not a I got you type program. It's just not the intent of what it is that we're trying to do. And again, each home is going to have to be evaluated on a case by case basis. So we definitely want to address those code issues first. And now if those issues are the issues exceed the maximum amount under our program, well, then we just have to, cross those bridges when we get there. I'm sure everyone's heard of the golden rule. He with the gold makes the rules. And in this case, HUD is the one with the gold. And HUD, enforces in strict regulations that we have to adhere to. And, some of these regulations, are, included in our program. And so when we get to the property, we certainly want to address everything that we can. And with the increase in funding from $25,000 to $50,000, that definitely gives us much more flexibility to do that. Unfortunately, in some cases, we just may not be able to get to every property. However, what I do want to mention as well is that in addition to our rehab program that we have, we are also working with other nonprofits and other organizations within the city to help extend these programs as well. For example, there's EOAC that has a terrific weatherization program. There's also Habitat for Humanity and grassroots community development that is often offering programs as well. The goal is that when you combine these other programs with ours, then that's going to provide that much more sustainability to the property.
Yeah. Well, as I understand it, the program has been in existence for a pretty good number of years, I guess. But it's
about 2 years now.
2 years. Now, this particular one on the rehab program, did it run out of funding as far as our local options on that, or did we?
No,
we still had ample funds.
We still have ample funding, and we are waiting for citizens to apply.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you this, and I'm kind of going back to the same trick question that I didn't talk to you about before, so I may be asking something that you don't want me to ask you or shouldn't. But again, if like Marcus just described, if the needs exceed the 50,000, for example, is that something either in a separate year or some other time frame passing, or what about either any of the other programs that we'll talk about in a minute? The down payment assistance or any other funding. Does that compete, or you can still have those funds as well as anything that you maybe did on the earlier program?
Okay, so our rehab program does work hand in hand with our lead program.
Okay.
So we're able to combine those funds to assist the property owner. Now, we have had referrals from the Code Enforcement Department to assist families who do receive code violations. And actually, we have one in progress right now. But there should not be any fear of a homeowner with concerns of having any code violations assessed to their house once we've gone out and done an inspection. We would do all we can to assist the family. And if it exceeds the amount of allocation that we can provide per unit, then we will contact other agencies to come in and assist the property, and then we'll go behind and see if there's any additional work so they won't receive those code violations.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly kind of where I was going to. If the funding exceeds, as Marcus said, the 50,000, for example, of the capacity, you all work very closely with Grassroots, Habitat, and all the other people who do things maybe on a volunteer basis, and they may have other funding or volunteer efforts that can take care of the other things to get it in, because you want safe homes, and that's the whole idea of the housing code department as it is. Yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah. Well, that's so great. Well, I noticed in here that you household income is part of the deal. What are some of the qualifiers as far as what makes a person eligible?
So all of our programs are income based. And so you have to make 80% below the median income for the city of Waco. And so it is designed to income qualify the person based off the family composition. So if you have a family size of 1, the most you can make is $36,800. If you have a family size of 2, it increases per family size. And so that's how we determine if the person is income eligible, based off their household composition and income.
And those are guidelines, again, sent out by the federal government, because they're providing the funding. As you said, they're the block of gold that they're providing it, and we're just administering it. So,
yes.
And our heart is in you. And so if you have any of these qualifications, we want to make sure that you are aware of these. And these people in the housing and our code enforcement department are out there to make you a safe home, not to take care of getting things, code enforcement, all that kind of stuff. They're there to help you. And so we encourage you to do that, because, like you say, the funds have not run out yet. And so these are funds out there on the table that our citizens need to take advantage of.
Right. And we also, for those that we cannot assist, we do keep a list of those individuals. So if we implement any new programs that may be able to assist them, we will contact them first.
Now, if they're over 62, what is the loan program doesn't work for over 62s?
Well, no, it definitely works for an individual that's over 62. Keep in mind, this is a loan program, and so there is a percentage of repayment that you have to pay back depending on your age and or your income. And so if you're over the age of 62, you do not have a repayment. However, we do have a deferred forgivable loan that is attached to it. And so the deferred forgivable loan could be anywhere between 5 to 15 years that you have to stay in the unit. Okay. As long as you stay in the unit, you do not have to repay the city back for the amount of money they put into the unit. But if you do, we do recapture the funds at a prorated rate. Now, we do have some individuals that fall in between different income brackets that do have a percentage of a repayment. And so there will be a percentage of a repayment, and then a portion of it will be a deferred forgivable loan. As I stated, as long as they stay in the unit, they do not have to repay the money.
Super. Sounds really very fair and equal and available for anything. So what's the application process? Is it online? Can you do that, or do they need to call you or come in, or what's the deal?
So right now, of course, due to COVID, we are mailing out applications. However, we intend to roll out a online application for our applicants to apply online. Now, the application process takes between I say 1 to 2 weeks to income qualify the person and to ensure we have all the supporting documentation. And to complete from beginning to the end of the construction, it would take us approximately 60 to 90 days.
Okay.
And with that, Larry, I'd like to add, too, for all the viewers that are watching, maybe they're thinking that they may not be able to qualify, or maybe they think they know a group of folks that really need to hear what we're saying here. With all the proper precautions taken, our department is willing to come out and to maybe perhaps your local church, maybe your neighborhood association, maybe there's a function going on next month and, they're expected to have a group of folks out there. We would love the opportunity to come out, set up a table, set up our brochures, our application, and do our little spiel, if you will, to really disseminate the information. The public needs to be aware that there is assistance available out there, and we want to do all we can to get the word out.
We just don't want to leave money on the table that's eligible to take care of issues that maybe you, an individual, like to do that. If you just joined us, we're visiting with Ranisha Hudnall, who is the interim director of our Housing and Code Enforcement Department of the City of Waco, and Marcus Davila. And what's your actual title?
Current title, Housing Construction Supervisor.
There you go.
Like many of the employees here, we all wear many hats. So
that's right, and the title's not always there. Well, that was the rehabilitation program that you have. We have two other programs I want to talk about. I guess you talk about, and one of them is a great concern. It's our lead-based preventable program, and this is a very great concern to us because I know the health district, in a survey that they did not too long ago, there were certain identified zip codes and areas of our town that have a higher than acceptable lead-based paint, and that's been attributed to children, especially having limited brain capacity. It's something that's health related to their brain capacity, learning, and all those type of things. Talk about, first of all, the need for a lead program, and just some of the issues that we're dealing with about this program.
Yeah. So exactly right. Lead-based paint is very, very dangerous when it's absorbed and ingested by young children, and really anyone for that matter. But obviously, young children are the ones who are mainly are most at risk. A few years ago, there was a terrific article done in the Waco Tribune-Herald that brought the awareness and the dangers of lead-based paint to light. In response to that article, City Council charged the City of Waco Health District to come up with an ordinance to combat the dangers of lead-based paint. And out of that ordinance, while looking for different resources to provide to citizens, providing a solution to the problem, the Housing Department applied for and received a couple of different grants from HUD and from the Office of Lead Hazard and Control in Healthy Homes. And those grants are now we're using to implement our new Lead is Preventable program, which is going to abate lead-based paint in homes where it's found.
Well, there you go. Now, this one follows quite a few of the same criteria, requirements, and things like that. Yeah. However, I see one major change, the fact that rental units are eligible. So if you live in this is all about your health. This is not so much the property itself being in compliance, all this. We're looking at the health issue here, so it's tied directly to that. So if you live in a rental unit and there is lead-based paint in that area, and that's normally lead-based paint is, as I understand it, from 1978 on, is that correct?
That's correct. And I did want to note that the reason why also we applied for the grant is, as I stated before, with the rehab program to preserve our existing housing stock. We had a large quantity of pre-1978, which would be an older housing stock that needed we needed to address issues with lead. And so that's why we decided to implement this program, as well as we were charged by the City Council to apply for the program. And so, Marcus, if you want to.
Yeah, and so you're exactly right. So that 1978 year is a key in one of the requirements of the lead program. In 1978, lead-based paint was outlawed for residential use. And so any home built prior to that, there's a very high chance that your home has lead-based paint in there. And the older the home is, the more likely that the lead-based paint is there, and the more likely that the paint is going to be deteriorating, and which of course is when it's most harmful. And so this grant is specifically designed for homes that were built pre-78 and where a child under the age of 6 lives or spends a significant time. And so those are a couple of the requirements, just like our rehab program. You also have to meet the income guidelines as well. It's all income based. And then, as you mentioned, Larry, you're right. Unlike the rehab program, where this program, you can be either a renter or a homeowner. So for rental properties, you could qualify for assistance as well, which is, is a really big game changer in the world of these programs.
Now, when you say the renter qualify, is it the landlord, though, that gets the money since they own the property to take care of the work? because the tenant's not expected to do the work on their property. But this was something, if you all go out and you identify, and first of all, how do you identify that you have lead-based? If you think you do, how can you test for it?
It's a great question. So what we do is we actually outsource that through a third party, and this third party will come out and they're going to perform what's called a lead inspection and a risk assessment, or a LIRA. And this LIRA is going to tell us exactly where the lead-based paint is, and more importantly, the best methods to abate the lead-based paint. And so we'll perform the LIRA on the house, and then once we get that report back, we comprise our write-up of the work that needs to be done based on that LIRA. And then again, we'll combine that with our rehab program and to do as much work to the property as we can.
Okay. Now, this lead-based remediation program is a different amount of funds compared to what we just talked about earlier. And this is not run out either. So we have no, I'm not going to say no limit, but the limit has not been capped yet on the funding to take care of this issue. So there's no excuse. If you suspect lead-based paint, you need to call our housing and code enforcement and let them have somebody come and check it, because if it was prior to 78, and especially if you have a 6-year-old or younger child in there, and even for that matter, eligibility doesn't just limit it to that. I think you can do it with elderly and everybody else as well, but kids tend to chew on things, you know. I remember chewing on things just now. Maybe that's what's wrong with me, but seriously, we want to take that health decision that we've now been able to tell and do something about it. And the funding is out there.
Yes, and I also wanted to add, just like the rehab program, this program does carry a deferred forgivable loan for 5 years. So if it is a homeowner, the deferred forgivable loan will be 5 years, and if it's a landlord, it will be 5 years. However, the landlord has to keep the rent at a fair market rate, affordable for the current tenant.
Okay. So in other words, it is basically it's a grant if you fulfill the obligations in within the 5-year term or whatever it is.
Yes. Yeah. And we just want to ensure that we continue the affordability period. Yeah. And we also would like to protect the investment.
Yeah. So it's not a loan that you have to take out and then repay. Correct. And all this kind of stuff,
right.
That type of thing. So, that's for sure. So, but again, making sure on this particular lead-based paint project that you first of all have it tested. Obviously, the suspect is if it's built prior to 78, which a whole lot of our homes are. Right. Of course, if it's been taken care of through the years, a lot of remediation, I guess painting over surfaces multiple times with the newer paint as it is, has probably encapsulated and probably helped prevent those type of things. But doesn't keep some children from chewing through as they're teething and do those kind of things. But anyway, another great program that you all offer through our housing and community code enforcement. It used to be housing community development. So yes. I'm having to watch that because we moved the community development to a different area. So anyway, yes. That type of thing. Another program that we're going to talk about, and then we'll kind of recap all of them, you have a down payment assistance program. And this is a goal, as I understand it, because we've talked about this on prior programs. This is funds that are available that are worked through your office to help people get out of renting and get them into home ownership, to give them that step up to get out of the renting routine. Talk about the down payment assistance program.
So with the down payment assistance program, is for a first-time homeowner. You cannot have owned a home within the previous 3 years prior to applying for assistance. We do provide up to $25,000 towards down payment and closing costs. We actually fill the gap with what the need is when they do come to us. The house has to be located within the city limits of Waco, and we will work closely with the lender to define what the actual need is. And this is also an income-based program as well, so it will be determined based off your income, and you also have to make 80% below the median income.
But I also see in here that if you stay there at least 5 years, it is forgivable.
Well, yes, that's true, but the deferred forgivable loan will be about 10 years.
10 years, okay.
Depending on the amount of assistance, because it's up to. You're not guaranteed $25,000.
Okay.
So it's anywhere between 5 and 10 years, depending on the assistance.
But a major part, if not all of it, could be forgivable if that's if you buy that home and you stay there from now till whenever.
Right. So if you ever decide, we don't want to say this, but if you ever foreclose or if you ever decide to sell the house, then we'll be paid back at a prorated rate at the closing.
Now, as I understand it, the home buyer assistance criteria that we just talked about, $25,000, you also have a CDBG assistance program that kind of aids that, or funds with that, or is that part of the funding process that comes into that?
So yes, we have an IDA program that is carried out through Grassroots, our local CDC, and we match it 2-to-1. And so they're able to build a savings account and utilize that funds towards down payment and closing costs.
Okay. And so if someone's interested in getting into a home and they've got a fairly stable job, I'm sure there's some criteria on that. It's not like the big bank loans that you have to qualify for and whatever else, but this can certainly get you into the starting point, if nothing else, because like you say, it does have a cap to it, I guess, does it, or is it? Oh, it's fine.
The maximum, yes, there is a maximum, housing limit that you can purchase, and it escapes. And right now, I think it's $294,000 for the city of Waco, as long as it doesn't exceed that amount.
Okay, well that'll buy just the average house is 200 something houses.
Yes,
that's right. So, but again, criteria there, the income, same basic income requirements or qualifications we kind of talked about on the other projects is pretty much the case on that too. So that's an opportunity again through our housing department to help.
Yes, and I do want to make mention. It's not on the topic, but we do have a rental assistance program currently within the department that we are accepting applications. And the assistance is up to 3 months, and the max amount is $2,400. So if anyone who has been impacted by COVID-19 and presents a financial hardship, we will provide rental assistance for those individuals.
That's great. And that's not only rental, but I think mortgage assistance?
Mortgage as well. My apologies.
So
mortgage as
if
well.
you're making your house payments and having trouble due to COVID-19 and have the qualifications again, there's programs out there, and that's what's really neat about this too. So, and I'm looking through some of the criteria, and it's really not that ominous that keeps you from doing and being part of it. So, best thing I'm going to recommend is that they get in touch with you all on any of these type of things, because there's so many options out there. And I know that I was talking to Mike Stone over at Grassroots the other day, and we're going to have him on our program probably another week or two to talk about the roof program that they have.
Yes.
I think that's outside of what we're talking about here. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So there's a roofing program here with all the rain we've been having and everything else. We're finding out probably that there's some roofs that need attention. And so at a later date, we'll talk about that. We've got a couple of minutes left. I want to make sure we've covered everything. So be thinking about anything that you want to make sure we go back and talk about it if we overlooked it. But I think these are just great examples of how the city of Waco has gone and sought these grants and these fundings, the funds available from the federal government that are out there to benefit and aid our citizens. And so I commend you guys in the Housing and Code Enforcement Department. You're not wanting to be code enforcement and just make sure the house is safe, which we do. We want to help provide the funding and the basis of taking care of that. Anything we want to talk about that I haven't mentioned in here. So
we just would like to encourage people to apply for our programs. I mean, we're here, we're waiting on you guys to assist you guys. And just keep in mind, all our programs are the same across the board as far as eligibility. When it comes to eligibility, as long as you're 80% below the median income, you meet the requirement, have lived in the house approximately 2 years, and or if you're purchasing a new home to be considered a first-time home buyer, you can't have purchased a home within the previous 3 years. Even if you feel as though you don't qualify for the program, please still apply. Call us, ask us questions so we can walk you through the process.
Which is a good point, because again, now to apply, I mean, first of all, either call you for questions,
yes,
and we'll tell them how to contact you, and also you mentioned the fact that you're working on online applications and things like that.
Yes, currently we're in the process of working on rolling out an online application through a system named Neighborly, and we currently use the application process for our small business program as well as our rental assistance and foreclosure prevention program. And so the reason why we want to do that, because we want to accommodate our clientele to ensure that they are in the comfort of their own home doing currently what we're facing right now, and then we can walk them through the application process. And even if they do not have access to a computer or the internet, they can come to City Hall and we can help them, assist them with filling out the application.
And a phone number they can call?
It's 254-750-5656.
5656.
Yes.
That's pretty easy.
5656.
Or they can also, of course, visit our social media pages. We're constantly updating those pages to get the word out as well.
Renisha Hudnall, who is the interim director of our Housing and Code Enforcement Department, and Marcus Davila, who is involved in the whole department, and I'm not even going to try to go over your department, have been our guests. I really appreciate the time and effort that you all spend giving each individual person the time that they need to find out what loans and grants and forgivable many times are available through the City of Waco. And thanks for being with us this morning.
Thanks for having us.
We hope you'll join us again next week for more information about the City of Waco on City Talk. This program is produced by the Municipal Information Department of the City of Waco and is provided as a public service by this station.